Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We are in Parshat Chukat. Just a couple of words before we kick off Kabbalat Shabbat tonight. Little message from this week's Parsha, from a rather peculiar episode. We see in chapter 21 of this week's Parsha, we see that the Bnei Yisrael are attacked by poisonous snakes. The solution is for Moshe to make a copper snake, which he puts up on the top of a pole. And the Torah tells us that whenever the Bnei Yisrael would look up at this copper snake, they would be cured. And if they didn't, then they would be harmed and injured from these venomous, poisonous snakes. Very intriguing episode in the history of the Jewish people, and a very perplexing solution. By the way, if you've ever wondered where that logo for the medical community comes from, with the snake wrapped around the stick, it's from this week's Parshat. It is the forerunner to the famous symbol for the medical community, the snakes wrapped around the staff. It comes from this week's Parshat, from the healing copper snake that would cause anybody who looked up to be miraculously healed. It's a very interesting thing. We could ask a couple of questions on this. Question number one: if God was going to heal them miraculously anyway, why look up? Why was this the solution, that they have to look up at the copper snake? The Talmud tells us that when the Jews would look up, they would turn to their Father in heaven. They would connect and associate the copper snake that they were looking at with their Creator. So it wasn't the snake that was doing the curing, it was the relationship with Hashem that brought about the cure. But why create that potential for error? They're looking up at the snake. They could be misled to think that the snake is the thing that's going to heal them. But the Talmud is telling us that it's Hashem who is doing the healing. And by looking up at the snake, they are associating Hashem with their refuah, with their healing. But why cause them to be misled potentially? It's a very dangerous, murky territory that the people are treading in. And also, we could ask, why are they having to look at something that's caused them the pain in the first place? Have something else at the top of the stick. The snake has already just poisoned them, has already injured them, has already harmed them and hurt them, and then the solution is to look at the very thing that's caused them all this pain in the first place. So there's a couple of interesting answers and a couple of interesting lessons that we can learn out from this very interesting and intriguing episode. The Ramban tells us that they had to look at the snake in order to focus on Hashem, and in order for them to think that it was Hashem who created the venomous snake, but He's also the one that created the healing snake. Ultimately, it is our Creator who we turn to, both in times of life and also in times of death as well. It's all one and the same thing. For everything in life, we have to turn to Hashem when life has its ups and when life has its downs. This is one of the messages that comes out from this episode. A very interesting bit of, not wordplay, but association between the words. The Hebrew word for the pole that the snake had to sit on was called a nace. Hands up if you've heard the word nace before. Yeah, a couple of hands there. The Hebrew word nace means a miracle. It's the same Hebrew word. The Hebrew word for nace, for pole, is the same as the Hebrew word for a miracle. There's also a Hebrew word for a challenge, which is called nisayon. And at the root of that word are those same two letters, nun and samach, nace. Ultimately, a miracle and a challenge, the good and the bad, they all come from Hashem. So for the Bnei Yisrael to look at the snake on the one hand had injured them, but on the other hand it was healing them as well. Everything comes from Hashem, both in the ups and in the downs. When the going is good, we have to look to Hashem and say thank you. When the going is bad, we have to turn to Hashem and ask for His help and for the reversal of our poor fortune. The second amazing insight that comes out from this episode is as follows. The commentaries point out that the bite from these venomous snakes is a metaphor for the snakes in our lives. We all have instances where we get poisoned by harmful people, by toxic relationships, by abusive situations, with problems that we have with our family, with our friends, with our co-workers, with our teachers, with our students, with our bosses, cases where people get stabbed in the back, both literally and figuratively, anxiety, moments that cause us and create such immense feelings of anxiousness and nervousness, bullying, all of these instances, all of these venomous situations that a person may go through in life. Psychologically, the Torah tells us it's possible to look at the snake, but from a new perspective, to be able to get through those moments, those dark, bad moments. We are able to stare the problem straight in the face and perhaps even find the solution to bring ourselves out of these situations. When we're in the thick of it, we may not be able to see the way out. But the Torah is telling us that if we look up, if we explore the situation that we're in from a fresh vantage point, with a fresh pair of eyes, if we turn to Hashem to help, then we can perhaps find the thing that's causing us these problems and use them as the launch pad and the springboard to recovery. The cure for a snake bite includes the venom. The antidote for the poison is rooted in the venom itself. And so in so many instances in our life, the things that drag us down, the things that give us problems, the things that give us anxiety, sometimes those challenges need to be faced head on with the support of our loved ones, with the support of our Creator, turning to Hashem for the cure, for the recovery, for the help that we need to be able to get through these things. Two very important lessons that come from this week's parasha, and I wish you all Shabbat Shalom.